Madhubatarithayate madhuksharanti sindhava madhvirna santoshadhi madhunaktam utoshasi madhumatpartivagum rajam madhudaurastu napita madhumanno vanaspatir madhumagum astu surjam madhvirgavo bhavantuna. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. From the Rig Veda. May the winds blow sweetly, may the rivers flow sweetly, may days and nights be sweet to us, may the trees and plants be sweet to us, may all beings be sweet to us, may the dust of the earth be sweet to us, may all beings be happy, may all beings be peaceful, may all beings be blissful. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Welcome to Vedanta Society. We are really happy that Dr. Huston Smith will speak this morning on my early days in Vedanta. Dr. Smith does not need any long introduction. He is very well known in St. Louis, not only St. Louis, all over this country. He is one of the gurus or the pioneers of the world religions in America, not only in America, in the West. He started his journey in late 1940s. And he was the president of the Vedanta Society. He was very closely connected with my predecessor, Swami Satprakashananda. He will tell about him to you. And this house where you are now, it was bought in his name and his wife's name. Because my Swami's and my predecessor's skin was not white enough to get this house. We are very grateful to him. He has tremendous contribution to all humanity. Do you know what? His books, the world's religions, are in the curriculum in many schools and colleges and universities. Not only that, that book has been translated into many, many languages. Two things strike me most about that book. First, he put all religions in its own place. He did not put any religion down or any religion up. Sometimes I tell people, religions are not God. Religions are paths which lead to God. When you read Huston's book, you will feel that you are in the helicopter. And from there you can see 44, 40, Lingel Boulevard, Delmar Boulevard, 70, all reach to the arch. When you read this book, that feeling will come to you. I remember I was with Huston in Borders Bookshop in Kansas City. So a young man came and said, "We have our religion, why do we need more?" Huston said, hold on, young man, hold on your faith. He brought really tremendous harmony. I am a monk of the Ramakrishna order. You see his picture? He was born in 1836, passed away in 1886. He realized God in Hindu way, then practiced Christianity, saw Jesus, then practiced Islam, had the vision of Allah. After realizing God in many religions, he proclaimed, as many faiths, so many paths. Do not fight, do not quarrel about religion. That we find from his book. You know, another thing I find in that book, hunger. Do you know in religion, in spiritual life, what is necessary? Only one thing, hunger for God. yearning, longing. That is the only thing needful. Jesus said, first seek the kingdom of heaven, everything shall be added unto you. His book tells us that. Not only that as I said, my Father's house has many mansions. His book also tells us that. And one day I remember I was joking, I was teasing him, why do you make adventure in all religions? He says, Swami, I have my own faith, but I take other religions as vitamin supplement. If you have vitamin deficiency, what do? You take some vitamins to get some energy and you feel great. So I take other religions as my vitamin supplement, I get strength. Same thing I feel when I have nearly 200 books on Christianity and the mystics, Sufi mystics, Jewish mystics. When I read all these mystical traditions of the world, do you know how do I feel? If I had hunger like that, then life would be so joyful. They really enjoy what is called true religion. Doctrines, dogmas, all these, all secondary details. Anyhow, Huston deserves our love, respect. Because you know why? As you see, American today in 1950 or in 1940s, 1950s, America was not like this. He worked, he gave his whole life for the American people and for the people in the West. Change your outlook. See the world. See different faiths. Really, that is a whole his lifetime's job. Nowadays, when I see him with the walking with the stick, well, Swami, my mind is all right. Body is failing, but what to do? But his spirit, his love, that counts everything. He came to us many times. I remember when Shat Prakashanandaji died in 1979, he came. In our Golden Jubilee in 1988, he came several times. Whenever he comes to St. Louis, he always comes to us. And I'm very happy that Ladu Chapel also invited him to give a talk tomorrow at 7:30 at Ladu Chapel. Then Tuesday, there will be a program in Washington University where he started his teaching. There will be a program. I am just giving you some advance news. So, Huston Smith will speak on my early days in Vedanta. Thank you. I'm at your bag. Water is here.
Thank you, Swami, for that very generous. Are you going to be there? I trust everybody unless they're behind my back. Well, thank you for that very generous introduction. This is more than a happy occasion for me. It's a joyous occasion. So many friends, so many memories. When I was thinking on the plane flying in last evening about this morning, what came to my mind was this room, this building are haunted. Now, we think of haunted as ghost stories on Halloween and things like that, but the real meaning is much deeper than that. And even ghosts, in the traditional Christian liturgy, the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. That was the word for it, because it was a word for the Spirit. And so when in my memories, flying through the skies to this morning, I said this to myself, this room I will be in is haunted. And then there came to me the lines of a short poem. I am so filled with ghosts of loveliness that I could furbish out and populate a distant star, so the gods themselves would come to gaze and memorize and duplicate. Well, those ghosts of loveliness is what I'm feeling today. Now, I want to begin with a curious item. I'm going to spring something on you, Swami, that you know nothing about. I have one extant brother living. He's a newspaper man. And he tells me that in the newspaper, whole life on the Detroit News, very good columnists, and he says it's common knowledge among newspaper people that there are the three great newspapers in the United States: the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal. And he says there's also a little in-house joke about those. The joke goes like this: God decided that this this creation of history wasn't panning out the way he had hoped it was, and he was going to shut it down. But he had heard about equal disclosure, so he had to let three papers know, not give any one paper the scoop. So he notified those three papers, and the headlines the next day read, first, New York Times, world ends tomorrow, big banner. And then in the subhead, opinion and analysis on the op-ed page. Then the Washington Post, world ends tomorrow, women and children suffer most. And then the Wall Street Journal, world ends tomorrow, banks close early. Now, the reason I told that is for what I'm going to spring on you. I was invited to speak in Washington, D.C. in March. And the religion editor of the Washington Post, he phoned me and he said, I want to do an interview with you, our telephone. Are you up for it? And I said, sure. 10 o'clock in the morning, we had made an appointment to start. When he hung up, I looked at the clock. It was noon, 2 solid hours. He was very good. He had a seminary degree himself. And then the Saturday before I was to speak, on the religion page, why, there's a full page interview account of that interview with me. Now comes the surprise. They sent a photographer out, and she spent a full hour with me. And, clicking, 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 sent them maybe 200 snaps, which ones you want to choose from. And then when it came out, they choose this, I don't know, they've got me not standing on my head, but on my side looking down. And what am I looking down at? Well, she asked me for artifacts that would be, what could you have for your China background? So I showed her the China primer that I have kept, my first book, and my name on it. And then she said, how about something else? And here is a Chinese teapot. It's like a gourd, but the Buddhists say this is the hand of the Buddha pouring the tea for you. And here, Swami Satprakashananda, because I have his photograph on my study wall. And she was saying, who's that? What's that all about? So she takes that. So, Swami, for your memento, the file, I give you that. All right, now to settle into business. I've been asked to speak about my early years in Vedanta, and nothing could please me more. As I told my wonderful host for these visits, our lifelong friend, Marie Etting, my only problem is my memories are so many that I have to cut it down to enough to fit an hour or not much more. So this is my shopping list about things that I want to cover. All right. My introduction to Vedanta came through two people. One is not so well known now, Gerald Hurd, and then his close friend, Aldous Huxley. And while I was writing my doctoral dissertation, I came upon a book that I thought might have some relevance to my dissertation. And by page 3, I discovered no relevance, and I kept on reading all night long. It's the only time I've read all night long. I just could not put that book down. And when dawn was breaking, I put it down. I realized I had a different worldview. Before that, at the University of Chicago, it was sort of a scientific worldview. That's all there is, and then everything fits in that. That book by dawn, that worldview had collapsed like a house of cards. And in it was because this was the first book that treated mysticism affirmatively. My education and Protestants were particularly bad about this. This was, remember, over half century ago. And now mysticism is all over the place, but not then. Rhino Niebuhr, one of the leading theologians, said, mysticism, it begins in mist, fuzzy thinking. It centers in I. Egoism, they are also proud of their mystical experiences, and ends in schism, separation. Well, that's what I was brought up on. But then that night, I discovered the real thing. And then I went on to Aldous Huxley. When I visited, first I read everything that Gerald Hurd had written, lots of books, about almost as many as you, Swami. And I read everything he wrote. This was after my dissertation, because I made a vow that morning as I went to sleep, I will not read another line by this man until I have my doctoral degree tightly in hand, my union card for teaching. But after I have that, I am going to read every word he wrote. And I did. And then I decided I want to meet this man. So I didn't know where he was. In England, here, I wrote in terms of the publisher. And the publisher sent it to Gerald Hurd, and I got a handwritten note back. I will be happy to see you. However, it may be difficult for you to find me. And then he was at Trabuco College then, up Trabuco Canyon. But I went. I was determined. And then as we were saying goodbye, he said, have you met Aldous Huxley? I said, no. Would you like to meet him? I was 28 years old. Would Huston Smith, this nobody, like to meet Aldous Huxley? Yes, I think I might like to read. So he said, Hurd said, he is interested in people who have our interests. So he gave me a note of introduction and the apartment number in Los Angeles. I went. He was away, but there was a maid there, and she put me on the line to him. He was at his little cabin with his Maria, his first wife, before she died, and he was very cordial, told me what bus to take, where to get off. I did, and he came towards me to meet me, and I spent a delightful time in their cabin, sweeping out the sand with Maria Huxley and making the cots up the beds with Maria. That's glory for you. And it's been downhill ever since. And then Aldous Huxley and I went for a long walk in the Mojave Desert. And he said he loved the desert. And all the time he was spouting passages from the desert fathers in Christianity. And he said the sameness, the dryness, the brush is like a mantle of snow. How you wake up in the morning and everything is covered with snow. You can see no object, only the undulations. And that clears the mind towards the unity, the oneness of the divine. Well, there began the lifelong relationship. Gerald Hurd did not live very long. And I brought him to first to Washington University for a week, and then when I moved to MIT for a semester. And while I was there, every college in New England wanted him to come. And my highest priority was to spend every moment I could in those 3 months with Aldous. So one way up in Maine College, we couldn't, when we were driving back to Cambridge, he had given a brilliant lecture, and he said to me, Huston, it's really quite embarrassing to have spent one's entire life pondering the human condition, and in the end to have nothing really more worthwhile saying than just try to be a little bit kinder. Well, the humility of the man, so many things. But now I must go on. When we were to say goodbye, to catch the bus back, he said, you tell me you are moving to Washington University, St. Louis. There is a very good Swami there. Swami? I don't think I even knew what the word meant, but I was hanging on every word. And I even know his name. And he drew out a piece of paper, thought Prakashananda. Well, when we arrived in St. Louis, the first week, I looked in the phone book, and he was listed, an address down on Delmar Avenue, and a telephone number was there, and I called, and the woman answered, and informed me that there were lectures every Sunday morning, and there were discussions Tuesday and Thursday evening. So I went by streetcar. We didn't have a car then. Down Delmar Avenue to the apartment number, a building, second floor, walked the length to the last apartment on the left. The door was open. I entered. There were about 3 chairs, maybe 3 rows, 8 chairs in a row, and maybe there were 8 or 10 people seated in silence. So I went there and sat, feeling a little bit nervous. And when 8 o'clock came, Swami appeared, and walked to the podium, looked at us, and said, we shall begin with a chant. And he did, and then he translated it into English. And then he said, in these evening discussion group, we are working our way through the Katha Upanishad. And as it proceeded, he would read just a line or a verse or two, and then he would enrich it with his commentaries. And I went back, I was raised a Christian. It was identical with Bible study group. That's the way they would go, but this time it was a Katha Upanishad. And the whole ambience seemed rather strange to me, but as I went out, I can still visualize it. A small volume, it was an orange with an orange cover, the Katha Upanishad. And I bought it, went home, and before I went to bed, even though I had to teach an 8 o'clock class the next morning, I sat down and I read 2 pages. The second most interesting reading experience. By the end of page 2, maybe 3, I could not believe how much truth was captivated in so few words. Well, and it goes without saying, I went back and back and back. And then the society was expanding. Not fast, because in those days, no newspaper in St. Louis would publish even a paid advertisement for a religious service that was not Christian or Jewish. And so it grew slowly, but it grew. And then the Swami, or the director of the society, noticed this building was on sale. So they applied to negotiate for sale. But when they found out this was a heathen religious group, they refused to sell it. Okay. Now, Swami, you have to tell me if this was a little bit devious, but we came up with a plan, and I applied to buy it. Well, I was a junior professor at Washington University. No problem. Of course, I didn't have but a few dollars in my checkbook, but Swami took care of the down payment to me. And so I bought this building, and the next week it became the home of the Vedanta Society of St. Louis.
Eleanor was name was also in the document. You and Eleanor both. You and Mrs. Smith also, both name are there. Eleanor's name
I'm so deaf. Do you want to step a little closer because I lip read?
Your name and Eleanor's name also is there in the document.
Yeah.
It is both you and your wife.
This is in the record.
It is in the record.
This is in the record. Okay, my claim to fame. Yeah. Well, this relationship deepened and deepened during the remaining 10 years that I was in St. Louis at Washington University. Excuse me, I'll get a drink. Try to get this frog out of my... And I had met great scholars before, and I had met holy men before, and women, but I had never found the two combined in the way it was in Swami Satprakashananda. And so the relationship deepened and turned into virtually weekly 1 hour tutorials. When I would come and at the table there, I would ask him questions. He would give me reading, and he laid down the basics of the Vedanta in my mind, which has been a marvelous platform when I began to become a comparativist and to move into other religion. I can tell you, I still remember vividly the two points that struck me like a breath of fresh air. The first was the 4 yogas, 4 paths to God, jhana, bhakti, karma, and raj. And through knowledge, through the mind, through devotion and service. No, service is in karma yoga and Raj yoga for meditation. And he said, you Christians and Jews, you have those all 4. One of the most famous verses in the Hebrew Bible, which the Christians picked up and repeat, is thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy mind, jnana yoga, with all thy heart, bhakti yoga, with all thy strength, karma yoga, and with all thy soul, Raj yoga. But he says, you give those 4 in one sentence. You give one sentence. And as you know, he pointed out, we have a volume on each one to spell out the implication of that. Well, that, as I say, just came like a blast of fresh air to me, that we all have different aptitudes, and we all have all 4 in it, but it stands to reason that we get further spiritually if we lead with our strongest suit. The other one was, there is a technical word in Christian theology, apophatic and cataphatic theology. Cataphatic is what you can say about God. Apophatic is what cannot be spoken. When the insight mounts into samadhi or something like that, and you are overwhelmed, but it just inundates speech. And that, I later was to find out, is a very strong theological trend, stream in Christian theology. I had never heard of it until Swami Sappakashananda pointed it out for me. I could go on and on, but I will not. I want to tell you, though, one last point that was so powerful. Christmas Eve, every year, Swami Satpakashananda would give at 8 p.m. Christmas Eve a meditation. Always the title was the same. Jesus Christ, the light of the world. Well, our family was Christian, and our church at 4 o'clock Christmas Eve would have an annual pageant. So the whole family could be there together. And it would always come with the we three kings of Orient are dressed up in costume coming down the aisle. And then there would be a manger scene at the time. And then we would go home. And that was very moving because the family was together. And it came in experiencing this. Then we would go home for a simple supper. Kendra would have, she went by her first name then, Eleanor, but has switched now to her Kendra, and would have a simple supper, hot chocolate with marshmallows, because the kids weren't interested in food. They wanted to get to bed quick so they could get to their stockings and Christmas presents early the next morning. So after we had tucked them in bed, I would come to 205 South Skinker. And those hours served a different function. The church had served the family function, but this one, Swami's point was that Jesus Christ was an incarnation, was God come to earth. Now, the fact that for the Swami, avatars are numerous, whereas in the Christian view, this happened only one, didn't make any difference at all to me, because it was so transparent that Swami Satpakashananda truly believed that Jesus Christ was an avatar. And as early on in Christianity, I think one of the most inspiring doctrine lines is God became man, so man could become God. That is the human opportunity. And I will just round off my litany of gratitude to Swami Satpakashananda for driving that point home, because the Christian churches had become very wishy-washy on whether Jesus really was God incarnate.
Matma me shuddhantam jyotiraham virajabi papma bhuyasam. Antaratma me shuddhantam jyotiraham virajabi papma bhuyasam. Paramatma me shuddhantam jyotiraham virajabi papma bhuyasam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May my body become pure. May I be free from impurities and ignorance. May I realize myself as the light divine. May my mind become pure. May I be free from impurities and ignorance. May I realize myself as the light divine. May my soul become pure. May I be free from impurities and ignorance. May I realize myself as the light divine. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto all.